Lonely CEO shocked as twin girls asked for leftovers. What he discovered in their eyes was amazing. Ethan Blackwood maneuvered through the flood of people as he walked away from his towering glass-hewn empire that pierced the Chicago skyline. The rhythmic hum of the city buzzed around him, neon lights flickering like fleeting moments of joy against the gray backdrop of another corporate day. He shut his eyes briefly, but behind his eyelids, the events of another day blurred into a haze of reports and projections. Despite his business accolades and electric office view, a soul-crushing disconnection gnawed at him. Were these glass walls really his fortress, or just a cage he forged himself? While navigating the pulse of the night, his gaze happened upon the two small figures hunched near a dimly lit alley, silhouetted against the relentless shuffle of life passing by. Twin girls. They were so small, barely old enough to grasp the weight of their circumstances, yet they held a quiet defiance in their expressions. The stark contrast between his life of excess and their scavenging near a dumpster hit him like a punch. As he approached them, the questions swirled in his mind. How could children be reduced to begging for leftovers? How far had he strayed from humanity in his climb to the top? "What's your name?" he heard himself ask despite the turmoil churning within. They looked up, wide-eyed, and with a hint of hope, they shyly asked if he had any leftovers. An absurd request coming from children who should be dreaming, laughing, blasting music instead of crafting their lives from scraps. Ethan hesitated, his heart battling against the polished corporate demeanor he wore like armor. For a moment, he stood paralyzed, a stranger in a world he had helped build yet never truly entered. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The gravity of this moment crushed him, suddenly illuminating the cavernous void in his life. The family dinners forgotten, the laughter suppressed under piles of spreadsheets. As they sat in a nearby diner, sharing buttered toast and lukewarm coffee, their early struggles spilled out like vibrant colors splashed against a canvas of bleakness. The twins dreamed of attending a local tech camp, a glimpse into a world of possibility yet so distant from their current reality. How could this be? Their innocence and hope sparkled against the backdrop of his failures, awakening a part of him he thought long buried under corporate ambition. Yet amidst this revelatory encounter, the walls built by his own ambitions loomed ominously, reminding him of the sacrifices made, connections severed, opportunities missed, and how he had molded success with a cold precision that valued profit over people. He wrestled with the burdensome truth that his achievements had contributed to a system that left these girls behind, compounding their hardships while he reaped rewards. Panic surged within him, he felt trapped. Burning questions swirled as the revelation of his privilege settled like a thick fog. Every laugh from the twins felt like a taunt from an alternate reality where he, too, could embrace that unguarded joy. Would he spiral further into isolation, or could he grasp this chance to redefine not just their futures but his own? Sitting across from them, their laughter played in stark contrast to the heavy silence that had enveloped his life. The joy of their presence collided unervingly with the dread mounting in his gut, a prelude to the irrevocable changes he might be compelled to embrace. With a newfound determination battling against an overwhelming sense of dread, Ethan faced an uncharted territory within himself. As the joy in their eyes flickered and met his own for a brief moment, the weight of legacy pressed down on him like never before. Would he dare step beyond the boundaries of his existence into the chaos of change? The questions swirled intoxicatingly in his mind, tangled in the shadows of his past, as he watched them share another laugh, leaving both his heart racing and his future uncertain. Ethan left the diner, the sounds of the bustling city fading behind him as he stepped onto the cold sidewalk. The aftertaste of buttered toast and the warmth of the twins' laughter lingered like an unexpected thrill, igniting a flame of restlessness within him. He walked aimlessly, the city illuminated by evening lights that seemed to twinkle with questions yet to be answered. The encounter had stirred something long dormant, a yearning to reconnect with what truly mattered. In the days that followed, the twins' dream of attending tech camp gripped him. Unable to shake their hopeful faces from his mind, Ethan spent nights staring at his spreadsheets, distracted by a restlessness that grew sharper with each passing moment. His life, once a series of calculated decisions aimed solely at maximizing profit, now felt hollow. Beyond the success metrics and quarterly reports lay a profound emptiness, a chasm filled with tasks executed yet devoid of meaning, the human connection stripped away in favor of transactional gains. After consulting his executive assistant, he initiated a philanthropic project aimed at providing local underprivileged children with resources and opportunities in technology. The process, however, was not as smooth as he envisioned. Skepticism lingered as board members questioned the purpose of shifting resources away from corporate growth to social engagement. Ethan found himself defending the importance of social responsibility against a backdrop of cold calculations and potential revenue loss. "Philanthropy doesn't pay the bills, Ethan," a board member remarked, his voice tinged with doubt. "We're in this to make money, not distribute it." Each word felt like a jab, revealing the stark divide between his old mentality and the burgeoning new vision clashing in his heart. He returned home that night, frustration bubbling beneath his meticulously constructed exterior. The shadows of guilt loomed larger, seeping into his consciousness. Had he forgotten who he was? Or had he simply decided that climbing higher meant forging disconnected relationships? As the city hummed beyond his windows, he thought about the twins. Would they ever be willing to trust someone like him? Could he ever earn their laughter back if he stood on the opposite side of the glass wall he had allowed to grow so tall? Determined to immerse himself in the community, he ventured out once more, seeking, perhaps subconsciously, the twins. He wandered through local parks where children played, through community centers where he could feel the stirring of hope and laughter. He witnessed families sharing chances, talents, and aspirations while he had hoarded success alone. Each encounter chipped away at him, a slow fracturing of barriers built to safeguard his heart. Weeks turned into months, and Ethan's resolve solidified. He dove deeper into understanding the systemic issues that left the most vulnerable behind. He attended town hall meetings, listened to stories of struggle and resilience, and began forming lasting relationships that were as much about giving as they were about learning. He discovered that connections were not transactions, they were the lifeblood of society. And yet, the echoes of doubt were relentless. The societal resistance grew louder as Ethan publicly risked his reputation. Critics emerged, both within his own company and from the community, asking whether he was doing this merely for the optics. They questioned his motivations, wondering if a man who had once epitomized corporate ruthlessness could genuinely shift to a compassionate model. But with every challenge faced, he felt the chains of his previous self begin to rust and crumble. The love from the twins urged him forward, a reminder that redemption was possible. With each moment, he prepared himself for confrontation, questions from board members, skepticism from the community, and even reflections of his own insecurities. As the shadows of his past rose against the light of personal growth, he was faced with an undeniable truth. Presenting this new vision would require more than just intent, it demanded courage. The moment of truth approached, and the real question loomed: would he truly commit to leaving behind the comforts of his prior life? Would he stand before the board and assert this newfound path, even if it risked losing everything he had built? Ethan inhaled deeply, the pulse of the city thrumming in his ears, ready to face whatever awaited him next. Ethan stood at the doorstep of the boardroom, his palms slick against the cold, polished surface of a table that had witnessed countless decisions aimed at profit margins and personal recognition. The air was thick with tension, filled with anticipation that echoed the nervous rhythm of his heart. He had rehearsed this moment 100 times, yet as he glanced at the faces of his fellow board members, he found himself questioning whether he could articulate the transformative journey he had embraced. One by one, they entered, their expressions an unsettling blend of skepticism and curiosity. Ethan's mind raced. What if they see me as a fraud? What if they doubt my commitment? The thought clawed at him as he drew a deep breath, pushing past the anxiety that hovered like a suffocating veil. "Thank you all for being here," he began, his voice louder than he intended, betraying the quiver he felt inside. "I wanted to discuss an initiative I believe could redefine our legacy." He paused, searching for the right words that would not only resonate with them intellectually but would also relay the passion that had ignited within him over the past months. "The past few months have opened my eyes to realities in our community that I had conveniently overlooked. The honesty behind his admission drew murmurs of discontent from some members, but the flame within him burned brighter against their criticism. I met these twin girls, and their dreams inspired me to shift our focus from profits to purpose. Skeptical glances darted between the directors, each questioning Ethan's sudden shift in values. As he continued to speak, pitching the idea of mentorship programs and scholarships instead of private investments and high-stakes acquisitions, he grasped their forms of resistance, old notions held tight, and the fear of uncharted ventures. "Ethan, this is admirable in theory," a board member, Jonathan, interjected, his voice calm yet filled with condescension, "but in practice, it's reckless. Our shareholders won't support this. You're suggesting we allocate resources based on sentiment, not strategy." Ethan tightened his jaw, the familiar burn of frustration rising within him. What strategy do we have if we lose touch with humanity? What legacy are we building if we continue to see people as merely numbers on a balance sheet? I thought we could inspire change. The conviction behind his words surprised even him, a battle cry born from the depths of his discontent. But Jonathan's dismissive smirk ignited a familiar spark of defiance. "You're an excellent businessman, Ethan, but this will become the core of who we are." Ethan interrupted, surprised at his own assertiveness. "I'm tired of chasing shadows. I want to build something meaningful. Can't you see that these children, like the twins, represent potential? A chance to alter lives and the fabric of our community?" His fervor hung in the stale air, feeding the uncertainty swirling around the table. Though he could see cracks in their facade, the internal fight on their faces was palpable. He gripped the sides of the table, grounding himself as the tension peaked. They could feel it too, the looming question of whether he could lead them down this new path, a route fraught with risks and rewards unknown. Silence cloaked the room, heavy and unnerving. In that moment, every person would have to examine their own motivations and definitions of success. Would they support a move that pivoted their financial goals toward a purpose rooted in the community? Or would they retreat to the confines of comfort, preserving the status quo, fearing change? "I know it's a risk," Ethan added, softer now, but with undeniable gravity, "but every significant innovation carries some level of uncertainty. I believe this is the future." With every second ticking away, Ethan sensed the gravity of the decision he had presented, a personal alignment with social responsibility against the backdrop of possible failure. The path of transformation would not be easy, but as he stared at the expressions around him, something ignited within him, a determination solidifying into resolve. Taking a deep breath, he prepared to face whatever decision would come, knowing that the fight for his vision was a battle worth undertaking, not just for himself but for the twins and countless others like them. As the board members exchanged hesitant glances, Ethan held on to the lingering hope that a spark of understanding might light the way forward. But then, the door creaked open, and an unexpected figure entered the twins. Their innocence clashed with the corporate rigidity that surrounded Ethan, and the sight was a sharp reminder of what lay on the other side of this pivotal moment. Could they tear him apart, or pave a path for something greater? The air thickened with uncertainty. The crossroads had arrived. Ethan's heart quickened as the twins stepped into the boardroom, their wide eyes absorbing the corporate environment with awe and confusion. He hadn't planned for them to be here, yet their presence felt like a lifeline thrown into the tumultuous sea of his current turmoil. The board members shifted uncomfortably, the gravity of the moment merging his passion with their disbelief. "Maya, Anna, what are you doing here?" Ethan managed to ask, striving to cloak his surprise in warmth. "We wanted to see you," Maya chirped, clenching her sister's hand tighter, "and maybe, get to know how big companies help kids." Ethan's chest tightened, their innocent query had cut through corporate pleasantries with surgical precision. Their simple yearning reminded him why he had been fighting so hard for change. Here were the very voices he had been advocating for, standing in stark contrast against the cold metal and glass of corporate ambition. Suddenly, the boardroom felt like a cage, constraining the hope he had previously defended. "Children are our future," Anna added, her voice barely above a whisper. "They deserve more than just dreams, they need chances." The silence that ensued was punctuated only by the quiet shuffle of papers and a hesitant cough from Jonathan. Ethan could feel the walls of skepticism shift as the twins stood radiating innocence and sincerity. He seized the opportunity, moving to the front of the table, and faced the assembled members. "Look at them," he said, gesturing to the twins. "They're living embodiments of everything I'm talking about. Their hopes shouldn't be just aspirations, they should be targets we strive to meet." One board member, Linda, who had been silent until now, leaned in, seemingly captivated by the twins' sincerity. "Ethan, how do you plan to implement such initiatives without jeopardizing our financial stability?" He rubbed the back of his neck, feeling the weight of each skeptical stare. "What's more risky, investing in our community or risking our reputation by neglecting it? We could develop partnerships with local organizations, create scholarship funds, and organize mentorship programs. If we invest in changing lives, we could ultimately change our bottom line in ways we can't imagine yet," he implored. Murmurs filled the room again, a mixture of resistance and curiosity. Ethan's resolve solidified. He wasn't just speaking on behalf of the twins anymore, but for every child like them. These girls can be the starting point. If we ignite the light in their eyes, we can do the same for others. A flicker of interest ignited in Linda's expression, battling the skepticism of the others. "But how do you intend to measure the success of such initiatives?" "By redefining success itself." The words slipped out of him, unfiltered. "We can't just measure success by quarterly reports. What if we charted the number of lives we touched instead? What if we showcased testimonials like theirs instead of just product launches?" Around the table, the expressions transformed subtly. The initial doubt shifted to intrigue as some members leaned in, drawn towards the humanity intertwining with Ethan's vision. "Metrics can be calculated, Jonathan," Ethan continued, capitalizing on the moment. "But we owe it to ourselves to ensure there's heart in our legacy. I refuse to let the voice of reason drown out the cries for change." One of the twins stepped closer, courageously breaking through the corporate veneer. "Mr. CEO, Maya said, her tone earnest, if your company helps, can you imagine how many lives will light up? How many kids could dream bigger?" The room staggered under the weight of her question, a moment suspended in time where the essence of corporate responsibility was distilled into a single, pure inquiry. Ethan held his breath, realizing this was not just about generating profit or winning board approval, it was about tapping into something far deeper. As the discussions swirled around him, he felt the tight coils of anxiety loosening, replaced by determination. He was unearthing facets of himself he had ignored for years: passion, empathy, and a resolute vision that transcended monetary concerns. But even as the hope surged within him, he sensed the gravity of what lay ahead. How could he now face the very system that had nurtured his ambitions while simultaneously stifling his dreams? Ethan's brow furrowed in concern. A pathway had been illuminated, but obstacles would rise. The stakes were higher than he had ever faced, a dimension of personal and professional conflict earlier unimaginable. With the twins in the boardroom, the stakes felt personal. This newfound clarity demanded action bold and transformative. Would he have the courage to navigate these turbulent waters, or would he allow fear to dictate his choices once again? As the board members exchanged reactions, eyebrows raised in contemplation, Ethan understood he was standing on the edge of a precipice. And now, more than ever, he needed to decide. A choice loomed before him that could redefine not only his career but the very definition of legacy. The time had come to face not just the board members but the shadows of his own past, that hollow satisfaction of profit without purpose. What path would he choose in this moment of truth? Ethan took a deep breath, the weight of unspoken anticipation pressing against his lungs. The boardroom felt charged with unexpressed anxieties, a crucible of decisions yet to be made. In that moment, something shifted within him. He could no longer settle for the corporate armor that had, for so long, shielded him from vulnerability. "I want to be clear," he declared, his voice steady despite the uncertainty that churned inside him. "This isn't just about making our financial report look good. It's about building a legacy that fuels empowerment through action. If we only chase profit, we risk becoming irrelevant." Silence enveloped the room once more, like a thick fog. Their eyes reflected skepticism, but Ethan now saw a faltering of that skepticism. He knew this feeling. This was the moment when he challenged the boundaries of what's expected in favor of something profound. Linda met his gaze, her expression softening considerably. But Ethan, what if our board decides this is too much too soon? We are already stretched thin as it is. It's exactly why we need to act now, he countered passionately. Every description in our textbooks tells us to innovate, but innovate how? By breathing life into our values and incorporating them into our business DNA. Only then can we turn this company into a catalyst for change. A barrage of thoughts raced through his mind. He envisioned painting a new narrative, one where corporate giants could uplift communities while securing their futures. Doubts lurked in his periphery, whispering that ambition could muddle with impracticality. But then, he recalled the resolute eyes of Maya and Anna, their aspirations anchored in realism instead of mere fancy. Success is a two-pronged fork, he continued, rekindling the fire inside him. We can enhance our bottom line while fostering true partnership with those we claim to serve. Who would have thought that some children's dreams could yield dividends far richer than gold? A slight murmur rippled through the room, tentatively hopeful yet grounded in the corporate realities they navigated. Ethan took a bold step forward, leaning against the edge of the board table. The moment we begin tracking the kind of impact we make in lives changed, dreams fulfilled, and transformed neighborhoods, we redefine our grasp of success. He was taking a risk, and he felt the tremor of vulnerability in his tone. Yet within it, there was strength. There was clarity that came from facing his internal conflict head-on. He knew he couldn't just speak. He would have to act. Let us pilot a program, then, Jonathan interjected hesitantly, the unease still evident. Show the board results. If it's successful, perhaps those numbers will convince the others of its legitimacy. Exactly. It's not just doing well, it's doing good, Ethan responded, seizing the opportunity. Let us merge our business metrics with social impact metrics. We'll shine a light into every dark corner of the community we've ignored so long. Slowly, the tide shifted. He saw heads nodding, their initial resistance waning. Discussions cracked open like a dam, previous objections were whisked away by the current of renewed resolve. But beneath this wave of emerging support, Ethan felt the trembling uncertainty still coursing through him. Was he prepared to carry the weight of a vision that held so much potential? Though the winds shifted in his favor, shadows of doubt still danced in the corners of his mind. As the discussion continued around him, he understood this conversation had only emerged because he had revealed his authentic self, the man who cared as much about values as he did about figures. Yet still, a voice echoed in his mind, reminding him that taking the lead on this initiative required unwavering resolve and unyielding strength against the scrutiny he would inevitably face. Maya and Anna had stepped into his world and lit a fire that could not be ignored, yet that same fire would attract both supporters and critics. With each passing moment, the framework of what he envisioned began to solidify, yet he remained acutely aware that this journey was only just beginning. Would he have the resilience necessary to continue pushing against the current? As he turned to face the assembled members, a steely determination narrowed his focus. The path ahead would require a relentless commitment to not just speak about change but to incite it, inspire it, and sustain it. What he didn't yet know was that within the very fabric of pursuing this new legacy, some unexpected forces would come into play, testing both his personal integrity and the professional principles he had fought to uphold. Ethan couldn't help but wonder if his greatest challenges awaited just around the corner, concealed in the very same shadows he was now so determined to illuminate. Ethan emerged from the boardroom with a blend of exhilaration and trepidation swirling in his mind. The discussions had taken a turn he had only dreamt of, but the reality of leading such an initiative weighed heavily on his shoulders. Each step toward his office felt heavier, as if the floor itself was laden with expectations. The voices of his colleagues echoed in his mind, and for every nod of agreement he had seen, there seemed a corresponding doubt lingering just beneath the surface. He sank into his chair, the cool leather a stark contrast to the heat of his resolve. The ambitious vision now lived beyond simple words, it breathed and pulsed with every heartbeat of the people whose futures he aimed to touch. Yet, there it was again, an unsettling whisper that questioned whether he was prepared to bear the burden of this new path. Reflecting on the children who had inspired him, the vibrant dreams behind their innocent eyes made his mission feel tangible, but it also magnified his fear of failure. Was he just chasing an ideal? The idea of merging social impact with business metrics took on a life of its own, pressing against the edges of his comfort zone like a storm swelling on the horizon. What if he miscalculated? What if the business world, so punctuated by numbers and narrow margin ethics, was unable to understand the complexity of his aims? As he rubbed the bridge of his nose, the tension tightened within him, clenching around his resolve and testing his inner fortitude. There was no turning back. He had opened the door to a level of vulnerability he had never dared to approach in his corporate life. After a few deep breaths, Ethan found focus. He needed a plan and actionable framework which could anchor his vision while also satisfying the board's inclination for quantifiable success. It worked in the background of his mind. All he needed was time to let it settle. Ethan grabbed a notepad and began jotting down ideas, his handwriting almost frenzied with urgency. He envisioned tangible goals, pilot programs that engaged underprivileged kids in creative projects, offering them skills alongside mentorship. Connecting business results with the positive impact on these children's lives would give the board clear metrics to embrace. But what if their skepticism returned when faced with actual execution? Could he risk alienating his peers again if the results fell short? As he wrestled with these questions, his phone buzzed, snapping him from his spiraling thoughts. It was a message from Maya, checking in on him after the meeting. There was something warm about the simplicity of her words, a reminder that he wasn't alone in this endeavor. "Hey Ethan. Just wanted to see how you're feeling after that epic pitch. Remember, you're not just a CEO, you're a leader. You've got this." The encouragement reignited a flicker of determination within him. It became clear, success would not emerge from isolating himself in anxious contemplation. The journey of merging business with meaningful impact must involve collaboration, inviting the insights and feelings of not just his colleagues, but also the community he aimed to uplift. He drafted a plan to gather a diverse advisory group, combining internal insights with the voices of community leaders and even the children. But as the day wore on, doubts resurfaced. Would he find the right people? And even more daunting, how would he balance their needs against the rigid expectations of the board? Although fueled by his most authentic vision yet, Ethan sensed the shadows creeping ever closer, reminding him that the road ahead was fraught with the unknown. Leadership was not merely about courage but an ongoing negotiation with doubt and hope. By the time sunset cast vibrant hues across his office window, he had outlined a preliminary strategy, yet in his core, uncertainty remained, but it was different now. It was tempered by purpose. He decided to make the first move by reaching out to Maya and Anna, the catalysts behind his evolution. What Ethan didn't realize was that their stories held more than inspiration. They contained intrinsic challenges that would force him to confront not only his vision but assumptions he had long held about success itself. As he typed a message, a deeper question emerged: could this venture redefine not just his company, but Ethan himself? Ethan leaned back in his chair, releasing a shaky breath as he reflected on the path ahead. The weight of responsibility pressed upon him like never before, yet the flicker of determination still burned deep within. He realized that it was more than just the numbers or the board's approval. It was the impact he sought to create, a ripple effect that could transform lives. He opened a new message on his phone and hesitated. Should he reach out or shy away? Absorbed in the weight of contemplation, he could almost hear Maya and Anna's laughter from the earlier days of brainstorming, their energy igniting the room like fireworks. Was there a way to harness that energy again? Could asking for their insight prove beneficial rather than burdensome? With that thought, he texted both of them, proposing a meeting to share ideas about the vision he had outlined. Just the act of reaching out felt liberating, lifting a fragment of the burden that had anchored him all day. Once the messages were sent, he stood up and paced the confines of his office. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a clinical glow that felt increasingly stifling. He needed a change of scenery. A walk might clear his head and dull those insistent doubts. Grabbing his jacket, Ethan stepped into the crisp evening air, the gentle breeze refreshing against his flushed skin. As he strolled through the nearly empty streets, the flickering streetlights cast ambiguous shadows around him. This wasn't merely a city engulfed in its nightly routine, it was a tapestry of stories woven from threads of hopes and struggles. Each passerby represented another plotline, and he found himself questioning what they carried in their hearts. Suddenly, he recalled the children who had prompted his changes, the twins he had met during his last visit to the local community center. Their innocence struck him as profound, particularly when they had shadowed his every move, eager to learn from the adult world he occupied. Their curious eyes had persisted, wide and hopeful as they absorbed each lesson like sponges. But what lingered even more was the moment when they had sheepishly asked if they could keep the leftover crayons he had brought. Ethan's heart tightened at the memory. He had brushed it off then, thinking it a trivial request, but now he saw it clearly. To them, those crayons symbolized not just color but potential, a means to express what their circumstances often kept muted. Rich with newfound clarity, he returned home, pacing again, this time inside his living room. He hungered to channel that essence, the enthusiasm, the aspiration, into his strategy. What if they co-created this initiative? What if he invited the children to design the programs intended for their growth, thereby giving them an active role in shaping their futures? Would that foster a genuine sense of ownership and partnership that mere engagement never could? The thought invigorated him, yet it also stoked the flames of anxiety. Would the board embrace this unorthodox approach? There was always the chance they might dismiss it as too idealistic, too emotional. But what was the point in doing this if he didn't target the very people it was meant to help? Just then, a notification chimed. Maya replied, expressing her enthusiasm to meet and brainstorm ways to facilitate community relationships. His heart quickened. Perhaps this was the synergy he needed, the very energy to push the boundaries of his aspirations beyond mere corporate jargon into something real. He felt the tug of excitement mixed with trepidation, navigating the thin line between hope and reality. This would not be just a meeting for ideas, it might redefine who he was as a leader and inspire a change his company desperately needed. But as he prepared for their gathering, another wave of doubt crashed in. Was he truly capable of navigating this complex web of expectations, the potential friction between idealism and pragmatism? Ethan's thoughts crystallized around both the promise and peril of bringing his vision to life. He was on the precipice of a journey unlike any other one he'd embarked on. Would he soar or falter in the pursuit of an authentic impact? As the night enveloped him, Ethan felt a profound shift within, a realization that the journey had only just begun. Could he muster the courage to lead, to truly inspire, and to transform not only the lives of those children but his own destiny? And at that moment, the question loomed larger: what awaited him when he opened the door not only to collaboration but also to authentic connection? Ethan arrived at the office the next morning, each step edged with anticipation and unease. The unrelenting fluorescent lights cast stark shadows against the polished floor as he entered the conference room where Maya and Anna awaited. Their expressions sparkled with excitement, yet he could feel the undercurrents of uncertainty coursing through the room. "Thanks for coming so quickly," Ethan began, his voice barely concealing the tremor of vulnerability. He took a seat, leaning forward as he glanced at the flip charts cluttered with ideas. "I know we've talked about shifting our initiatives before, but I think we've an opportunity to do something truly groundbreaking, something different." Maya's eyes widened, drawing in a breath of curiosity. "What do you have in mind?" Ethan hesitated, weighing the reactions he might face. He had envisioned sharing his proposal step by step, but now, the words felt stuck in his throat. Could he articulate the significance of those crayons without sounding naive? The silence grew thick as moments passed, punctured only by the incessant ticking of the clock on the wall. "What if we involve the kids directly? Let them contribute to the programs we design," he blurted out. "I want their voices to guide the way, to allow them to express their needs and dreams." Anna leaned back, a mixture of intrigue and skepticism dancing across her features. "That's bold. But what would that even look like?" Ethan's heart raced. This was a crucial moment. "We could host workshops where they could brainstorm ideas and shape the curriculum. Not just a series of activities curated by us, but a genuine chance for them to explore their capabilities." A pause enveloped them as Maya exchanged a look with Anna. Then, finally, Maya spoke, cautiously optimistic. "But, Ethan, you're aware that the board might not support this. They're used to structured, data-driven approaches. This feels messy." Ethan swallowed hard. She was right. The board craved quantifiable outcomes, clear-cut metrics on success. But did that truly reflect what success meant in this context? He could already feel their skepticism threatening to crush his vision, but he also recognized the potential birth from resistance. "That's precisely why I need your help," he implored. "The data won't speak for the kids' experiences, but we can develop a way to illustrate their growth, to quantify their engagement and progress through feedback. If we show how this impacts them, maybe we can change their perceptions." Sensing rising tension, Anna interjected. "But you'll be risking a lot. What if this doesn't resonate with the broader market? We put ourselves at a disadvantage against competitors who can stick to the status quo." Ethan's pulse quickened. Was conceding idealism worth the potential backlash? Yet, he found his voice rising above the doubt. What do we gain if we continue with the same dull strategies? This isn't just about profits, this is about upliftment. If we invest in these children, showing them hope, that could redefine everything. And maybe we'll see the returns in ways we never anticipated. Maya nodded slowly, internal gears visibly turning as she processed his conviction. "And how would you present this to the board?" His heart raced at the question. The boardroom loomed larger than ever, failure felt imminent, yet he needed to embrace the challenge. By framing it as a pilot. If we can demonstrate that this model shows tangible outcomes even on a small scale, perhaps we can justify its expansion. As they continued to brainstorm, Ethan's sense of enthusiasm grew, yet a pang of doubt lingered. Could they really shape this audacious vision into reality amidst skepticism and fear? The discussions ignited a fire within him, yet with every new idea, he confronted the stranglehold of fear. The very thought of standing before the board and defending this new direction petrified him. Yet, he knew in his bones that he could not back away now. The meeting drew to a close, but the path ahead proved murky. Questions loomed like shadows. Was he genuinely prepared for this upheaval in his career, in his identity, and what did that imply for his leadership? As he glanced out the window, he caught sight of children laughing in the park across the street, a vivid reminder of his purpose. Would he have the courage to both advocate for their dreams while facing the daunting realities of corporate expectations? Ethan clenched his fists, adamant determination surging through him. He would face that boardroom soon enough, but now another storm brewed within. Would he remain true to his vision, or would he allow fear to consume him? With a firm resolve, he stepped out of the room, heart racing, his mind swirling. What awaited him on the other side of this challenge? Did he have the resilience to fight for something so new and profound? But one thing was certain, the moment had come for him to step into the fray. Could he rise to the occasion, or would he let his dreams fade in the face of adversity? Ethan's footsteps echoed in the hallway, a steady rhythm that matched the tumult within. Each stride towards his office felt like a negotiation with doubt. He fumbled with his tablet, scrolling through charts and data, desperately searching for any evidence to bolster his case. But as numbers blurred before him, what he truly needed was a convincing narrative, one that would translate his vision into something tangible for the board. Once settled at his desk, he leaned back, allowing the weight of the day to settle. What was he really asking? To let children guide their own learning? It was novel yet audacious, a leap from comfort into the unknown. There was a profound difference between advocating for a radical shift and being the one to implement it. A flicker of fear swept through him. Was it hubris to think he could enact such a change? But even as the insecurity crept in, memories of the children flooded his mind, their laughter, their boundless creativity. It wasn't about selling the idea, it was about igniting a spark. He would have to convince the board that real impact lay not in sterile statistics but in genuine connection, the human element which numbers could never capture. Fueled by resolve, Ethan began drafting his pitch, shaping it into a compelling story that honored these reflections. He applied structure but allowed emotion to seep through. Every word became deliberate, every proposed initiative crafted not just as a plan, but as a call to action, a resonant plea for courage to face transformation. Even with newfound clarity, anxiety simmered beneath the surface. Time slipped away as deadlines loomed, and the pressure only thickened. Presenting to the board felt akin to walking a tightrope. One misstep could plunge him back into the confines of conventional thinking. he decided to invite Maya and Anna to review his pitch. With fresh eyes and their perspectives, he would refine it further. Their combined experience could provide the polish his proposal needed. Ethan sent them a message, inviting them to join him for an impromptu brainstorming session. Soon, they were gathered around his desk, a collection of papers and ideas scattered across the surface. Maya, more analytical, offered constructive critique, while Anna, filled with enthusiasm, added vivid anecdotes of her own interactions with the kids. Their collaboration ignited a deeper understanding of what was at stake. Just as they found their rhythm, Ethan confronted an unexpected feeling. Simplicity was the heart of his message. Could he distill the essence of his vision into one impactful statement? He took a breath and spoke out loud. What if we could show the board that fostering creativity can yield profits beyond their expectations? The enigma of intertwining financial success with genuine human growth crystallized within him. The mission transcended merely changing teaching strategies. It represented a paradigm shift in how they perceived their role in a child's life. Maya leaned in, her expression changed, thoughtfully considering the implications. That could resonate. If we frame it properly, it could shift their entire perspective. Ethan's pulse quickened. The thought of evoking a transformation not only in children but in the board itself dazzled him. Still, the shadows of doubt persisted at the corners of his mind. Would that message be sufficient to ignite the board's imagination? They worked late into the evening, the atmosphere charged with the thrill of discovery. The world outside faded as the trio brainstormed endlessly, driven by a shared vision that felt tangible in their grasp. By the time they wrapped up, Ethan felt an unshakable belief well up within him. If they anchored their presentation in genuine impact, perhaps the board would be compelled to view their work through new lenses. He stood, glued to the moment's gravity, thoughts racing towards the upcoming meeting. The familiar twinge of fear resurfaced, yet this time he welcomed it as part of the challenge. As he packed up for the day, Ethan whispered a mantra to himself. Courage is born from conviction. He understood the stakes were high, but could he embody the very essence of what he was fighting for? The thought lingered in the air like unspoken tension. The next morning would bring clarity, but he would first have to confront his own limitations. Would he allow the fear of failure to stifle him, or rise with conviction, embracing the fear as fuel? As he glanced at the clock, a silent resolve steadied his heartbeat. A pivotal moment awaited, and he was painfully aware that the lens through which he chose to perceive it could redefine everything. What bold steps would he take next? Ethan stood at the threshold of the boardroom, his heart racing against the steady drum of resolve. The months of transformation had culminated in this moment. His vision, his mission, woven into every word he prepared to share. The air was thick with anticipation as he faced the familiar table of faces, each one marked by histories both different and similar to his own. Today, he wasn't merely presenting a proposal, he was challenging his colleagues to envision a world far beyond earnings before interest and taxes. He inhaled deeply, allowing the breath of accumulated purpose to ground him. Thank you all for being here, Ethan began, his voice steady despite the storm within. Today, I want to discuss a radical shift in our approach, a synergistic initiative designed to empower children in our community, whilst ensuring our legacy reflects our newfound commitment to social responsibility. He watched as skeptical glares flitted across the board members' faces, each trained to prioritize monetary growth above humanity's heartbeat. But today, he dared to differ from the predictable narrative. The heart of this initiative began with two twin girls I met, Maya and Anna. Their innocent hope spoke volumes, revealing dreams born from struggle. They helped me realize that this company is more than just numbers, it's about building futures. Ethan leaned into the collective silence, absorbing their puzzled expressions while igniting the emotional resonance he had rehearsed multiple times. We propose collaborative workshops where these children design their learning experiences. They must not be passive participants, they must have agency in their futures. Glances shifted around the table, a mix of confusion and curiosity. A board member named Linda spoke first, her calm exterior betraying a flicker of intrigue. And how does this relate to our bottom line? Because investing in human potential yields immeasurable dividends, Ethan asserted, the pulse of conviction guiding his voice. We'll integrate measurable impact alongside traditional metrics, ensuring shareholders see that success comes not solely from profit margins but from transforming lives. He moved swiftly, citing empirical studies that connected community investment to enhanced brand loyalty and employee satisfaction. Yet, as he unwrapped layered justifications like peeling the skin of an onion, it became clear the presentation required more than data. It needed heartfelt authenticity. Imagine testimonials from children whose lives changed through our initiatives, he continued, unfurling an ardent hope that resonated through him. What if we showcased their growth not merely through surveys, but moving stories that rejuvenate our corporate image? These children define our legacy. Investing in them redefines how we as a company operate, aligning our missions with unassailable purpose. Maya's excited smile crossed his mind's eye. In those who had once scavenged for leftovers, he saw reflection, not only of deprivation but of potential vibrancy ready to burst forth if handed a brush and canvas. Ethan, Jonathan interrupted, his voice laced with his habitual skepticism. This sounds grand, but how do we convince stakeholders our already dwindling resources are meant for this cause? What is more costly, Jonathan? Feeding a facade of disconnection from our society, or establishing roots that strengthen our fabric? The edge of his frustration morphed into resolve, forcing Ethan to push past the initial wave of disapproval. He detailed partnership opportunities with local organizations that would nurture the program without siphoning corporate funds, steadily dismantling layers of doubt that had clouded the boardroom. A moment of silence hung in the air before Linda finally spoke, her tone tentative yet contemplative. If we are to entertain this, it has to align with our strategic goals moving forward. Can you generate an initial pilot phase? One we can measure without uprooting everything else? Ethan felt a surge of relief mixed with determination. Absolutely. By launching a pilot, we can track both qualitative and quantitative changes, drawing a direct line between our involvement and the benefits to the community. We won't just adapt, we will evolve based on feedback and results. As he continued, a collective shifting occurred, faces began to soften into contemplation. In that room, Ethan could sense the beginning of real openness, like a dawn breaking against the dark. But self-doubt clawed at him just as tenacity thrummed within. Would they see him as authentic? Would they allow his idea to flourish, or would skepticism overshadow hope? Finally, Jonathan spoke with a different tone, tinged with contemplation. If we're willing to create this space for children, you must be fully committed to the effort. Are you all in, Ethan? Ethan's heart raced as he realized the burden of his answer. Absolutely. This can redefine who we are as a corporation. But I can't do this alone. I need this board's support, and I need the community's involvement. Together, we can build a bridge toward a brighter tomorrow, not just for our company but for the generations who will inherit it. As he concluded, the tension fizzled into something more constructive, curiosity mingling with willingness to entertain new possibilities. He held the room's energy, determined not to let it dissipate. This was more than a meeting, it was a challenge to redefine legacy and success, rooted in actionable commitment to humanity, the very essence he had once overlooked. The exchanges continued as the board began to rally around the concept, questions swirling about the specifics of implementation and community outreach. In turn, Ethan's narrative transformed from delivering a presentation to inviting collaboration. Strategies were crafted not just for the boardroom but for every vibrant heart inspired by possibility. As discussions unfolded, Ethan felt the discontent of the past wash away, a crucial metamorphosis energized by validation and authenticity. He knew that challenges still lay ahead, the ubiquity of doubts flickered in the corner of his mind, whispering caution. Yet, emboldened by his vision, he trusted this path was coinciding with purpose. Ethan left the boardroom that day feeling transformed, an empowered leader ready to embrace the tumult of change, but now also grounded in clarity. He had opened a door, allowing not merely a chance for innovation but a space for renewal where profit and purpose could coexist. With each step, he felt a burgeoning excitement for what was to come, not just for the company but for the twinkling eyes of children inspired to dream bigger. They had awakened him to a world unfettered, his commitment now locked, unlocking doors not only for them but for himself as well. Soon, he would step forth on the redemptive path of legacy with newly claimed confidence, one where achievement intertwined beautifully with humanity's whispered hopes, the ultimate triumph over mere numbers on a page. So, it is your moment to act. Subscribe immediately to this channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment your reactions and theories about this inspiring conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative story unfold. This is the moment to be part of something greater. Don't wait even one more second to share this journey of personal overcoming.